We were so uncomfortable during that conversation.
Really? Oh, I couldn't even tell.
I almost called her afterwards because like.
We talk about racism.
Well, I just
like.
wanted to be like, you're black. Let's talk about it. But
Yeah, he should have.
I had the conversation with Edwina. Like, hey, what's up? You're a black woman. Let's talk
And
about it.
Well, you know what's so funny that you say that because that's I don't know if we're recording now. It doesn't really matter if we are, but
it doesn't matter.
that's technically a microaggression. I had to learn about this stuff. Like if you say somebody's black before they tell you they're black, that's technically a microaggression. Did you know that?
Well, isn't it only a microaggression if they experience it as a microaggression? Like you can't tell someone a microaggression. This is a micro. Like they have to tell you that hurt a little. That was a little weird. That was a microaggression.
No, because then how would white people ever be able to learn about microaggressions if it wasn't like
through communication?
People don't. I mean, in my experience, that's because we had to do a lot of trainings at Pepperdine. I experienced. Right, like when and obviously you and Edwina know each other. When I wanted to ask those questions, like Dr. Millie Rose is like one of my mentors who works at Pepperdine. It's actually a really cool story of how her and I met, but that's for another time. But
yeah, we are recording. Yeah, go.
Oh, but she I would ask her because I'd feel comfortable like asking her stuff like that. But
that's good.
Yeah, I guess it is only if they experience. But then people aren't talking about it.
Because how do you talk about it?
People are talking about it more.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, how do you talk about it? I mean, it's a hard thing to know. It's almost like saying like, I got to make sure not to trigger people. It's like, how are you going to?
Sure.
How are you going to know? Like if you could be talking about like your child doing something and I'm like, hey, dude, that fucking triggered me.
It's funny that you said the word trigger because one time my husband and I were in our cycle and having a disagreement. He's like, I'm like, said something about something being triggered. And he's like, you're literally triggered by everything. I was like, that's not wrong.
I love it. All right, let's do this. Yeah?
Let's start use that part too.
We can
let's do
totally
this.
Do it. Yeah.
Then you'd have to edit it.
I will. Thanks. Just kidding.
How dare you? Do I need to be quiet during your intro? Do you do an intro?
We can just do this. We can just say the show started right now.
We could just say the show started. Welcome to another episode of Mr. Therapist and the Counselor Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Mr. Can I do that?
We are.
This is really the introduction.
Yeah, this is the intro right here. You're in it, Laurie.
I'm in it.
We are a podcast that talks about mental health and addiction recovery, and our mission is to demystify the process of therapy. And we do that through honest and raw conversations. And Jesse's laughing at me right now. But we have a guest today.
Yes.
Laurie.
Do you guys not always have guests?
I always want to say Laurie.
We do like every...
Laurie K.
Remember
That's
that?
so funny. Oh, yeah. I was
still
Laurie.
have it on my phone as Laurie K.
I was Laurie K. even at the practice I'm at now because we had Laurie May. Yeah. Yep.
Wilson.
This is going to be a fun episode because we both have ADD.
Yes.
And Jesse's going to judge the shit.
No, I'm not.
I actually didn't know that about you, so I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah.
And you know it's not ADD, just FYI, ADHD. There's no ADD in the DSM-5 anymore.
Check that out. You just got schooled on camera and audio.
I live, breathe, eat ADHD, not just like internally, but also externally.
And what if there's ADD for me? Like, in my experience.
Yes. I don't want to take away that experience for you because you're correct.
You're such a therapist.
It was in the DSM-4, so yes. You were probably around when the DSM-4 happened, so.
Yeah. But gosh, I love how we're kicking this off.
It's natural, dude.
It's
good.
Okay.
We just have conversation.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about sitting next to each other and like talking, like looking
we just
at
talk like
each other's
this.
eyes and talking?
We have guests. We just talk like this most of the time, anyways. So
your breath smells like it smells like in the morning.
Oh, how do you know that? How do you know
that? Know that. Don't buy into that shit.
Oh my gosh, this is great.
Yeah.
This is great.
Gosh.
So we're in San Clemente as we talk about, and I said like I didn't really want to like do like we all started at this one program here, but like we didn't all meet initially in San Clemente.
You don't want to
Why
do
are
that
you
again?
doing
it?
Because I don't. I feel like
because then you have to go backwards, celebrate the story of how we met, and
it's not even that. I don't even do. You remember? I don't remember our first interaction.
Jesse's in a rush. Okay.
No, I'm not in a rush.
Just kidding.
I actually think I might.
Do you?
What time do you have to be home?
No, you. I don't. I mean,
long hair. Yes. I think I first met you because when I went downstairs, you were actually running a group.
Okay.
Weren't there? There must have been windows or something.
There could have been. Yeah, there was windows in the halls.
And I was like, that guy really knows what he's doing. And that's just how you carried yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
That's right.
I think it was like, okay, watch these people with the therapy stuff, like the one-on-one. Maybe they kind of know what they're doing there, or with like turning in paperwork. This guy effing knows how to do groups. Like, I'm gonna watch this guy, and I'm gonna do what he does. I actually think it was just natural. You were like, just real, and I think that's hard to find.
Did you ever observe a group of his? No.
Oh, I'm sure I did.
Yeah, it's hard to like.
It's hard not to want to watch, Jesse.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all we have time for. That's what we
That's
just
it.
wanted you to do, just to confirm that he was good. Just kidding.
Good at what I did. I'm genuine, y'all. Peace. But yeah, so
That's great.
yeah, so that's good.
Yeah.
So we're not going to tell you the whole story of how we met, but I actually remember meeting you too.
Yeah.
Because I thought you were really nervous.
I was your counselor.
We were downstairs. You were the case manager.
Did I look nervous?
Yeah.
Oh dang.
He always looks shook.
Love it. No one's ever told me that. Everyone's like,
I think
"You
just the
were
first
us."
time.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, I was so nervous. I was
Really?
intimidated. Was actually what it was.
Intimidated why?
By clinicians. Like I've never worked directly with clinicians. I had this idea built on my mind that you guys were competent and you knew what you were doing. Completely wrong about that.
Yeah, that's funny.
No, but yeah, I was just
Well,
intimidated.
especially as associates, like we're all just faking it until we make it.
I wasn't
too.
even an associate though.
Well, I know, but we all were.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. See, I didn't
So
even
you
know
were like,
that.
they seem so competent.
Yeah.
And it's like we're all still like finishing our hours and had no idea what we were doing.
I actually remember an interaction you had with a client of mine. I was their case manager, so we shared the client. It was a lady,
Okay.
and
A lady?
she
A
it was,
lady.
very.
We're not
Right.
giving identifying
I
information.
know, but
Jesse.
a lady.
Gosh.
Yeah, gotcha.
It was
It
a
was a
lady.
and I don't know if you'll remember this, but God, dude, and she says, I think you were discharging her.
Okay.
And so we had to find. I had to find referrals for her.
Oh, I wish I still had somebody who does that.
And
for me.
she was concerned, very concerned about the referrals because she wasn't sure if they were going to be able to match your therapeutic energy.
Aw,
And so
that's
she
really
was,
sweet.
Yeah, so she was like, I just want, like, doesn't Laurie see people outside here? I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
This is my second day on the job. But we talked to you about it, and I remember you handling that situation really. I was like, damn, she's a badass. Laurie's a badass.
Oh, I don't
you
remember
told
this.
her, you said, you know what? I understand you have a lot of anxiety, but I think this is a good thing. It's something that you can work through, and that's going to help you overall in your recovery.
Yeah.
And then she said, yeah, but all the people, like, I want someone who's had a lot of years in experience because I want them to be as good as you. And you're like, you know what? Actually, I'm an associate. Like, I'm still getting my hours.
Yeah.
And it probably is better if you go with an associate anyway because we're, like, passionate.
We're
We're
you
new
do
in
your
the
best work.
field.
Yeah.
You
then.
do your best work. Versus someone who's a little older in recovery or older in
The profession, like,
they
burnt out,
might be burnt out.
Yep.
And I was like, damn, Laurie's a
I
badass.
said that.
You did. It was kind of cool.
My stuff with my I think those snippets of knowledge were on point because
Because you're so burnt out now, right?
I'm so burnt out now. No, I postpartum ADHD, which is not. I'm coining that term. If somebody else hasn't already, I'm not going to search the internet.
You
That
heard it
sounds
here
like too
first.
much work.
That's right.
I'm just so much more scatterbrained than I was back then. I'm like, how did I don't know. How did I do it? But I've actually seen that in my practice a lot too, like the postpartum ADHD and just getting, right? Because you lose a lot of brain cells and stuff when you're pregnant.
Yeah. Postpartum
I
ADHD.
knew it.
That is actually the first
Yeah.
time I've ever heard of
even
that.
when when your wife's pregnant, you lose a lot as well.
Yep.
So we could always say, like,
I
we're
always throw that at
smarter
her
than you.
anyway.
Yes.
Losing
yes.
brain cells right now.
We have more brain cells than you.
So let's talk about ADHD. I think
Can I ask a question before
yes.
we? Because you mentioned the podcast is to demystify therapy. What does
yeah.
that mean? That word is just like
So we want-
demystify.
I'm
What's
so
the
glad
point?
you asked.
Yes.
Yes. So here's the thing about therapy, right? Like people
we go.
don't really
Here we go.
want
Here we go.
Therapy is like that kid who eats lunch alone. You don't really want to
Aw.
get next to that kid. You know, you don't know what people are going to say about you if you go talk to them.
Sure.
You don't know, he might have cooties. So you're very afraid to even have an interaction with that kid.
Yeah.
But that kid is actually really nice. And that kid could probably help you and give you a lot of wisdom. So we want people to get closer to therapy,
Yeah.
to the idea of what it is. And actually, this is my my thing. I don't, Jesse, tell me if you believe this too.
Okay.
But I actually think sometimes like therapists are so professional that they don't really invite people into the process.
Like they're so professional, they don't feel very inviting.
Yeah.
Or they're trying to be the authority in the room instead of allowing. Yeah.
Or trying to like pretend like they know it all, right? And so there's all these clinical terms and like it's just like it creates distance with a client. And so you know, me and him create this dynamic when you watch our show. No, they create this dynamic.
Share a show.
Yeah, where we're super cool, right? Share the show. Where
where we call ourselves super cool.
and we're just inviting, and we're real, and we're not put together like very well sometimes, and that's okay. And so and that's the purpose of the show. Yeah, like hey, dude, we're human too, right? And so that's what we mean by that, demystifying.
I love it. Yeah. That's great.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're on brand with that.
So that's what that is.
Before we jump into that, I guess one thing I was just
I
was reflecting on. Thank you. I was reflecting on though. You always really present as very confident though.
Oh yes, my husband tells me that too. He's like you don't come across as somebody with self-esteem issues. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, you come across very confident. And I'm like, no, well, that's cool. I guess that's not how I feel inside.
That was like my initial experience with you when we worked together. Like, was just like that, and I was like, "That's cool. Like that's a good vibe." I think that at the same time, like you being confident, it's not an overconfidence. Like, you do make people feel like comfortable. Like we were talking about before about being in the trenches. Like I feel like you're able to say, "Hey, like this is ground level. Like I'm here with you." Like, so I think that was always just something I was really impressed by.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Just wanted to give you a bunch of compliments.
Yeah, tell me what else you're impressed by with me.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
Hey, so that's what the demystifying is.
I love it.
And you know, I'm really happy we have you on the show because I feel like this term neurodiversity is very
neurodiversity.
Hot right now, right?
Oh, it's hot.
It's hot.
Yeah,
it's a hot term.
Everybody's talking about it.
Buzzwords.
Okay.
I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Tell me about what are your feelings?
I just like I appreciate that it was created. I don't even know who created it, but. Because I do believe like ADHD is a spectrum disorder. I think we kind of don't do well when we do kind of pigeonhole it because it is so diverse. Like people can have so many diverse things that are happening. So I understand, and because of neurodiversity, right? What's underneath that window is I think ASD, like autism spectrum disorders, and ADHD, right?
Yes.
So it's like disorders of executive functioning, which is like social stuff, impulsivity or response inhibition, and memory stuff like working memory. But so I understand why they did it, and I think it helps not like put people in those like diagnostic holes. Okay. But also, those two things are very different, right? I'm not going to diagnose my client neurodiverse. I'm going to diagnose them with ADHD or ASD, and I think that the thing with ADHD is a lot of clinicians do not feel comfortable diagnosing it.
Yeah.
And they're not, it's not educated enough, but you have to have like a lot of additional training to be able to see those things. And we're in a world, in a space where we're going to be seeing them more and more.
Right.
And early diagnosis is like huge.
Yeah.
So
why do you think they don't feel comfortable? Are they afraid of getting like audited?
I think they're afraid of getting it wrong.
Yeah. Do you think they're afraid of having that conversation with a client? Like, you might have ADHD or you might be on the spectrum.
I mean, I think that's a good question. I mean, I think all clinicians are.
I'm afraid of having that conversation with clients that I see who are on the autism spectrum. I'm actually afraid of, like, sometimes I'm scared of saying, like, hey, like.
What about afraid of like, a client that has any other, like, I guess, like, the idea of approaching it from telling a client they have any diagnosis can be scary, or why specifically? You know what I mean?
Yeah, why specifically that? That's a good question. I think because it's so new, like, just I'm even new in starting to look for that diagnosis with my clients.
Why? So, let me ask you why that is, because that's interesting, right? That's what we're talking about. So when I was in school to become a clinician, I worked with children who were on the spectrum, right? And so I was comfortable with it. Yeah. So maybe it is the school. Like, it's just interesting, right? That somebody who kind of worked more with the population was more comfortable and you weren't. Yeah.
That, and I think there's probably a lot of personal counter-transference, possibly just from, like, culturally, I think, like, my family, it's I don't know how to link it, but I'm just gonna say this.
Yeah.
So like, growing up, it would be really hard if you had a child who had autism or who had any disability.
Sure.
And I don't even know if it's fair to call autism a disability, but to have
anything that made them
different
sure.
Exactly. Like it would be kind of tough. And you think about the extremity of the diagnosis, right? To the extreme symptoms, and so it would be really hard to be like, oh man, like my kid is not quote unquote normal. So maybe some of that stuff.
Well, I think there's
a
sense of grief too that comes with having we all once. Yeah, and when I say what's best for our child, that's where I come from. The cool thing about it is, I actually think if and I don't know because I don't have a kiddo who's had any of those diagnoses or anything, but I think it's a superpower.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's really cool that we get to live in a world where there's lots of, neurotypical people or neurodiverse people or, people say like people in addiction or normies. Like we're still all stereotyping and putting people in boxes regardless of how we're doing it. Yeah. It's just the way we kind of conceptualize things in our brains. But it is kind of fascinating I could talk about this for hours.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you say it's a superpower. And I think as a clinician, where I'm trying to grow right now is I'm trying to really know that and like just communicate that in that meta communication of how I talk to someone about autism or ADHD.
Yeah.
So, because I do actually, if I think about it, I do think it's a superpower. I feel like I have self-diagnosed ADHD, and I'll tell you something.
Oh, you haven't been like officially. I guess you could because you're official.
No, but can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I took an objective test.
What's an objective test?
So an objective ADHD test is that, I forget what it's called.
You mean like the Connors or like the TOVA or like the...
Yeah.
You can't just take one though, FYI. You have to take multiple.
Okay, there's maybe I messed up.
You took one?
I took one. And then they came back to me and I thought I failed successfully.
I thought I failed successfully.
But then I had an appointment and they're like, no, you don't have ADHD. I was like... That's very invalidating, but I'm like, but it was good for me because I got off ADHD meds. And
so you started ADHD meds when you were younger?
I started them when right when I started my practicum because it was tough with school, but I was able to adjust and figure out a way to get through school. But where it hurt me was when I was seeing clients for the first time. Mm-hmm. I would have sessions and I'd walk away and be like, what the hell did we just talk about?
So you were somebody who... Because I take meds. So I got diagnosed, I think, when I was 27 and started meds, and I've been on them ever since. Obviously not when I was pregnant. Yeah. But you're somebody who was taking them and then got off of them because you got told you didn't have it. Was that hard? I always wonder how the transition off of
it's tough.
Meds are.
It still is. But I'm not a very med guy. Like, I don't like taking pills or anything. So I'm very holistic, I think.
Yeah.
So I practice. I make sure to practice just a lot of meditation. I try to practice exercise, eating a good diet, and I feel like it helps, but there's still those days where no matter what I'm doing, I either fall off the habits or the ADHD just comes on strong, and I'm just like, I kind of have to find a way to live with it. Yeah. And it's not, I've convinced myself it's not unmanageable.
Yeah. Well, and depending on what kind of like executive functioning deficits you have, I think that would be fine, but how the suicide rate is the highest between 15 to 24-year-olds and all of that. The reason I advocate medication, especially with ADHD earlier on, is because earlier on it changes the matter, like the gray matter in your brain. Yeah. And actually we're seeing then if kids start it, I don't know if it's like around 8 or 9, but if kids start it a little bit earlier, they can actually get off of it sometime like in high school. Then they never have to take it again, which I think is great, right? We don't want people who are, having to take stimulants. So there's this whole generation of, they call them the lost women, like, women specifically, and I think it's maybe 40 years to 60 years, or it might be like 50 to 70, but it's the lost generation of women, the women who didn't get diagnosed with ADHD. Because if you have it, there's 50% likelihood one of your parents has it, 38% one of your siblings does. So
wow,
yeah,
that's wild. I think my daughter has a little bit of it, and I'm afraid of the possibility.
What do you?
Why?
Well, not of the possibility of her having it. I feel like I know for sure, but of her taking medication. I almost want to avoid it at all costs.
Well, and I think talking to somebody who knows that, what were you going to say? before you tell them?
Oh no, you asked why. I mean, like, why would you assume? But I guess just probably based on your own experiences, right?
Based on my own experiences.
Yeah, and when you're a clinician, you kind of just like can't help it.
I'm diagnosing my whole family, right? Like, family tree, baby.
Yeah. I'll notice,
yeah, a genogram of diagnoses. No,
it's hard to see. You have a little girl, right?
A little girl. She's 5 years old, and
it's hard to see in girls. So that's kind of impressive that you can see it. Maybe this is your calling.
Well, I could see her spacing out sometimes.
Yep.
I could see her like I'll give her an instruction and she'll be like, okay, and she'll just keep doing what she's doing.
Just like you try to give me instructions to go to Starbucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or I could have her, hey, go do this. She's like, okay. And I'll say, like, say it to yourself. Like, say what I'm going to say.
But she can't say it to herself because she's 5.
I'm going to go brush my teeth. I'm going to go
That won't stop until 10.
She can talk.
No.
Just kidding.
Our voice, you know how you said say it to yourself? Yeah. That internal voice where we talk to ourselves, that doesn't, like, stop until around 10. And kids with ADHD talk out loud. Oh, you'll hear me talk out loud, too. Gosh. Sometimes, but she'll talk out loud probably until she's like 12 or 13.
I love it. It's like a freak consult for me.
But say it in your head. She probably can't.
No. I tell her to say it out loud. I say repeat it out loud.
Oh yeah, say it out loud.
I'm brushing my teeth. So that you know from your room to the bathroom, you know what you're gonna do, because she'll end up going to the bathroom and like painting her toes.
Yeah, let me. There's a sticker let me try to make sure I say it correctly. It says, my mind, the sticker on my computer says, my mind is like somebody emptied the junk drawer onto the trampoline.
Wow. I love that.
So if you said, as you're saying, like, say it in your mind, and I was thinking, how would that be? And if I was brushing my teeth saying, I'm brushing my teeth, I would still have I still have like 5 things going on in the back of my head.
Me too. Yeah. Another reason why I know is my wife works with preschool aged kids, ages 3 to 5. And she's like, Mia's definitely a little more inattentive as she compares to other kids, you know.
And I think Russell Barkley is like hands down the person who knows ADHD the best, because he actually, the coolest thing about him, and I want to say he's in like his 70s now, sorry if he's not, is he read every research article that came out about ADHD, which was around 35. If he's still doing his work, he's still reading them today. So every Friday he reads every research article that comes out in the world about ADHD, and it was around 35 to 40 articles. I'm like, I want to do that. I want to be him. Like, if he retired, I want to do his work now, because he is brilliant, and being able to read all the articles and really know what's going on. And so he's the one who advocates a lot for medication, especially in younger kids. Because especially with girls, the struggles don't happen until, you won't see more of the struggles happen until middle school, high school.
Okay.
Because they could even be in gait classes.
Yeah.
And just the co-occurring mental health too with it is why I think it's important to do med consultation and just understand the neurology of it.
Totally.
Like early on. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a note. I want to go back to the mental health part of it, because I think it's so important.
Yeah.
But let's define ADHD, adult deductions of health disorders, right? That's what it's called. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, man, what is happening here?
ADHD. What does it mean? Go ahead, Laurie.
Attention deficit hyperactive disorder.
Okay, and
which
why?
Is
So why is there no ADD? Like, because
now it's ADHD combined typed, or ADHD inattentive type, or ADHD hyperactive type. Okay. So yes, they used to separate those, but now yes, somebody who has ADD would now be essentially called ADHD inattentive type.
Okay.
I don't know why they did it, but there's a lot of doctors that write that thing, so I'm going to trust.
Yeah, for sure.
They know what they're doing every 8 years.
They know better than us, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny every time I do one of these shows, right? And so we break something down. Like, I'm always like, do I have ADHD? And then, like, we had somebody on, like, we had some narcissistic
You're like, do I have narcissism?
Am I narcissist? Am I
you know what's
sociopath?
Okay,
Yeah.
but you know what's so funny about those two things is so many times clinicians will have somebody in their office, mostly an older man. And they're like, he's a narcissist. I'm like, why? What is he doing? He just argues with me about everything. He's hard. He's sparring with you. That's what I call it. He's sparring with you, and you're getting caught in it. He has ADHD.
There you go.
So it's kind of interesting that you thought that. Don't know if you think like, I have this too. But those two in particular, then really? Maybe.
Well, I do hear that a lot. I've had this conversation where people do throw out the he's a narcissist, and we've had this discussion.
Everybody's thrown that out.
Well, I'm just like, it's kind of a cop out in some ways. It's like it's almost like you're throwing something on somebody just in the sense because it's like it's an uncomfortable maybe situation where I'm just like, That's a really like hard label to.
It's a pretty rare label too.
Yeah. So.
Like yeah.
What if somebody like, so there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of people self-diagnosing with ADHD.
There's a lot of people self-diagnosing with a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right.
That's just because of like Instagram and TikTok.
Right.
And
the knowledge is so public, and it's like.
Do you think that like?
And think about what we go through to diagnose, and even like, that's why I was teaching like assessments for individuals, families, and couples, and the diagnostic or psychopharm stuff, because I think we don't necessarily get enough of that in school. Like, you have to feel really confident as a clinician to be able to diagnose by the second session. And in order to do that, you have to be asking a lot of the right questions.
Yeah.
But there's times when I don't see it. Like sometimes I'll have a client, because I'm differentiating. If there was a circle, I'm really differentiating ADHD, OCD, and CPTSD or PTSD, like some kind of trauma, to make sure that and they can exist within one another, because 50%, I'm probably gonna get these wrong. No, 75% of people who have ADHD have one more co-occurring, and 80% have two. So they could have ADHD, depression, and anxiety, right? Yeah. And so it's a lot of times there is another diagnosis with ADHD, and that's something that's like really important to discern.
Okay. Yeah. And when it comes to like teenagers, I feel like that's probably where a lot of people start to see ADHD in the beginning. Do you think, what's the difference between, or is there even an impact within maybe like just having like excessive experiences with like stimulating dopamine hitting things, like you're on your phone scrolling, you're playing video games.
I was hoping you would ask this.
And like ADHD, because is there a difference or there's no difference?
No. So the first book on, I actually wrote this down for you guys because I knew this was going to come up. 1770, sometime between 1770 and 1790.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, sometime between 1770 and 1790. A book in Germany came out, and it was the first, what was it, on disorders of inattention or disorders of attention. Okay. Right. So, we're seeing ADHD more because we're on our phones too much, whatever. No, we're seeing loneliness more because we're on our phones too much. We're seeing disconnection more. We're not seeing ADHD because we're on our phones too much. Like, right. We're seeing more of it because we're having kids later. Right. And so every 10 years, like from age 20 to 30, you have like, the mutations aren't in your blood. They're either in your sperm or in your eggs, right? And the longer we wait to have kids, the more mutations we have.
Oh, so you think it's about, as a society, getting older, the higher risk of mutation going on?
And I don't think, just so we're clear. Research? No.
My bad.
Well, that's okay, because and the reason that I say that as a correction thing, too, is like there's some clinicians I'll talk to, and they're like, I don't really think ADHD is a thing. And I try so hard I'm like... Because that's like saying I don't think cancer is a thing. Like ADHD is a thing. It is a thing. And we really have to stop pretending like we think one day it's just going to be out of the DSM, because this thing is, I mean, it's 1770. It's been around for a long time. I think it's complex. And that's why what I think we try to do is people's like, no, it's this or this. Yeah. But, and a lot of people, especially somebody like myself who had... So I told you some of the girls weren't gay, but I had some kind of like reading comprehension issue. So I had like a learning disability, or have, right? And so that can be based off like multiple things. So I probably have complex trauma and ADHD, right? And so your executive functions form when you're little, right? Learning things, those things we're not supposed to have difficulties with reading comprehension, right? So the question is, did I have it because of genetics? Did I have it because of toxic exposure to like lead or pesticides, or I think 10% is like environmental, associated trauma, And that's hard to like discern. It's just the reason we, I think, want better diagnostic process for when people are little is because now we're seeing that the gray matter can change. Yeah. And like really cool to be able to help the dopamine regulate for like a period of 10 years versus like people being on stimulants for 30 plus years. Like that's not great, you know? So
what does that mean that the gray matter can change? How does that,
I'm not going to be able to answer that question. That's a doctor's question.
It's definitely talking about the brain, the gray matter in the brain, but like, what does that just mean for someone, that when you say that, does that mean people will have a possibility of not having ADHD in the future? Does that mean that Or what do you mean by that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. When you say not having ADHD in the future.
Like someone can go from ADHD to no ADHD as they get older.
I mean, if we're assuming that then by them not being on the meds, they don't have it, I would assume they still have it, but it's almost like it's in remission or something. Yeah. I don't really know how they're, but.
Yeah. So I thought you meant that by saying like the gray matter can change, saying like they could get better. I thought that's what that meant, but I would maybe.
I mean, and I would need to like honestly like do a lot more brain research. Like neuroscience is like so new.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part because you can break it down to like gray matter and neurotrans. I mean, like you would have to have a specialty in, because I'm an LMFT, right? I specialize in just making sure I'm looking at the person correctly, helping them explore whatever they need to explore. But also I'm so big on diagnosis too. And I know people are like, oh, well, we don't want to put anybody in a hole, but I kind of do, not intentionally, but because this is the hole they're in.
It helps you isolate the hole.
It helps you isolate the hole and know how to best help them, right? I'm going to treat somebody differently if they have PTSD or ADHD or OCD, right? Yes. So I feel like the question you asked was, what do you think? And that's what I corrected you. But like, that's the hardest part about some of this stuff, you know, like.
There are some specialists that I just took a training the other day, so I'm not like smart or anything, but I just took this.
Smart, bro.
You're smart.
I'm so smart.
You're so smart.
I'm not smart.
Yes, you are smart. Manny, say it to yourself. Look in the mirror and say, I am smart.
Don't make fun of this either.
I'm smart.
That's, again, that is one of my biggest.
That's how, by the way, that's going to the mental health component of people with ADHD, right? But before I go in there, I was going to say that there are researchers who will say that ADHD is something that doesn't necessarily have to stay forever.
Cool.
And that ADHD it's not like something you can find, but more just like a compilation of symptoms, I guess.
Yes.
Right. That happen over time, right?
Yep.
And so it's hard to say like, oh yeah, like this test will tell us if you have ADHD or not. It's got to, like you said, you have to have more than just an objective test. Yeah. Interviews, in-person observation, right, and all that stuff.
See, you knew that. Yeah. No, for assessments to be proper, they have you have to be. I can't just like do. It's like you take your car in, right? A mechanic looks at it, but he also has like a machine that like tells him what's going on, right? We have to have multiple ways because we're not, when like a human goes to like say, oh, this is what I saw. I saw the guy with the green car with the black hat, and they're like, no, you didn't. We are not the best at like reporting what we actually saw.
Yeah. So let's just go on off of my reaction, right?
Yeah.
I'm so glad we caught this. So I said I'm not smart, and I think it was a knee-jerk reaction. I didn't think in the moment like, oh, I'm not smart enough, but it is a narrative that I've built over time with myself because I was never getting good grades in school. Yeah. It was always hard for me to retain information. I probably had some sort of processing disorder that I figured out how to manage since then.
Yeah.
But this is the mental health part of ADHD, right? Because I don't know, how would you put it? Like you are sort of put into a way of learning, a society that has a way of learning that you can't really fit into sometimes. And so there is an impact on how you feel about yourself if you experience ADHD.
Totally.
Right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's funny because I want to hear Jesse's experience too, not having it, or unless you're like, no, I felt that way too. I do have it.
Jesse's perfect.
No, shut up. No, I'm just, no, go ahead. No, I'm really like just.
He's like, I don't actually remember when I first started school, so.
No, for me, like this is like, this happens often is like when we have somebody that is like well versed in all this, like it's just really like, it is a fucking live podcast, but I'm just like, I'm like taking it all in really. And like, I have these questions that are coming up, but like, this is a good school of knowledge for me, and like you're really just in depth with what you're talking about. So, like,
cool!
No, I mean,
love it.
Yeah, and I'll say some funny shit.
That's my codependency. I'm like, oh, we're not including Jesse.
No,
I thought about that too, but I was like, I feel like this is like really, this is great.
I do want to include Jesse in this though. Jesse, as a non-ADHD person.
He doesn't want to be called non-ADHD.
I don't really. Here's the thing.
You can be whatever you want
as a normie.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Is this conversation like out of whack? Like, is it like
no,
all
not
over
at
the
all,
place?
Actually. No, because I was thinking. No, because the brushing teeth thing. I was thinking about all those things. Like these things are all just kind of like, I guess like my thoughts are like these intrusive thoughts become. But I don't know if that's ADHD, right? Like I feel like I'll go into these self-defeating ideas and thoughts, and like. I can ruminate on just the most random shit and overthink about everything. Like I have interactions with clients, and they'll say something, and I'll think about that throughout the day. And it's not like obsessive, but I'm just like, should I approach it this way or that way? How was that person feeling in that time? But I'm like, I don't know, is that like an ADHD like tendency, or is that just obsessive compulsive like thinking? I don't know how to pinpoint it.
That's a good question. I call it what do I usually call it? It's like there's people who have coined different terms, like Russell Barkley termed time blind. And so like I have a visual time thing. So like I can't think what 10 minutes is, but when I see it, like the blue 10-minute thing, I'm like, oh, okay, now I have to leave. That's why like we struggle with time management. But that is something, and I don't recall what I call it, but like this social it's like almost like a social doubt where you will. So like if I'm in a room speaking to people, when I am then by myself, so when I get in the car and I'm by myself, that's all I'm doing is like punching myself.
Yeah.
Like, did they like me? Did I say something I shouldn't have said? I'm just like questioning everything that took place during that social interaction.
Yeah.
So I think if it's something like that, that's something that I think a lot of people with ADHD experience, because we're not able to self-reflect as well. Yeah. Like I'll either think I am the best at something or I'm like the worst at something, right? I'm like, no, I can play basketball really, really well. And then I like cannot. Or well, it's true. Or we think we're great, like we're the worst. And so I think that's part of that. And you'll see like girls more go down to be the worst. Or I'd say like people in addiction, because I think a lot of people who end up with addictions just because of the impulsive behavior probably have ADHD. And that's the interesting thing about addiction treatment is because they're not supposed to take any meds.
Yes, I know, right? That is like when somebody comes in and they're abusing that, it's like you can't even take that anymore. And it's like,
how many people have you had abuse Adderall though? Because in my experience, I have not had very many people.
It can happen, but they don't stay.
Stimulants.
It's like cocaine, right? You don't stay with it. Like you'll progress to like to meth, I think, with Adderall.
I think out of all the so out of all the clients that I've had in the last like 10, 12 years, I've only had one person, and similar to what you were telling me, who wanted to do like diet and exercise instead. And you have to really do like a full anti-inflammatory diet. You have to be exercising a lot. But I've only had one who would like abuse it. So, I also don't have addicts coming in a lot either.
Yeah. There are studies that like that people won't abuse ADHD stimulants. It's like one of the least abused.
Okay.
So that
you're
accurate.
Maybe not at college, because people talk about like how it's abused there. But good. Okay, I'm accurate.
I think sometimes maybe the belief is that they're abusing that, and then that when they use that. Let me ask you. I'm gonna ask because I feel like I know this, but I don't. Like Vyvanse, is that like an ADHD?
Yeah.
Okay. So like recently I had an experience with somebody who they told me like, I feel better when I'm on this medication. And then from there, I don't know if it was like they took that medication and then they said, if I take this, I end up using other substances like cocaine or like meth. So
I could understand why. So I would ask too what they meant by I feel better when I take this.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like, what do you get more of? What do you get less of?
Right.
But if there's somebody who has let's say they have complex trauma and there's somebody who has the propensity towards wanting to take things, yes, there is a time where you would potentially want, right, when we're an addict, we either want more of something or less of the feelings we don't want or whatever. So clearly they were able to discern that then that would make them take other things.
Right.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to do it.
I think there's just this hard line a lot of times when you're doing addiction treatment is like, it's either like you don't take anything at all. This is how you live your life holistically and whatever. Yeah. Well, there's also, we talked a little bit about harm reduction on an earlier episode, just of like, you could take this, but that's not really harm reduction. But like, let's say clients being on Suboxone or instead of like, so there's just people really have hard stands on stuff. So, and I think when you introduce like ADHD medication, it's still seen as like, well, you're abusing something, right?
Sure.
So, but I think and for me, personal experience, I think a lot of people are just maybe misinformed and not educated so much on the topic. Seriously, and that's why I sit here right now. It's just kind of going, okay, because I think from this experience, I'll sit back and I'll go, all right, let me look at this moving forward. Like, how would I address the client with ADHD? Are they abusing that substance? Or is it just something that they really need? So.
Yeah.
Sure.
You talked about intrusive thoughts earlier, and I think it's not intrusive thoughts isn't so much, I would say, a symptom of ADHD. Intrusive thoughts would be probably more found with like autism spectrum.
What are you trying to say?
That you're
that you are but one of the things that does happen,
I am a superhero.
It's called chaining.
Yeah. What is it?
I've never heard of this before.
Chaining. I think it's called thought chaining.
Oh.
And so I talked to my wife. I describe, like, because she'll always ask me, like, how do you, like, go from this to that? And so I'll kind of
You're like, it's my superpower?
Think back to my thought process. And so I'll say, so I don't know, what can I give you an example of? We'll be talking about, like, where we're going to go to dinner or something.
Okay.
And she's like, okay, yeah, we're going to go to dinner here. You know, maybe we should go here. And then all of a sudden I'll say, like, hey, you remember that car you wanted to buy, like, in 2003? She's like,
how did you get there?
What? How'd you
Wait,
get there?
let me ask you. So you saw the restaurant that you were going to go to, and then it was right next to a car lot or something, and you remembered the car.
Yeah,
like
something like
is
that's chaining, right?
Oh,
where it's
okay.
like
Okay.
you're talking about a restaurant, you're thinking about restaurant, and then you say, like, well, I kind of want pizza, and then you're like, oh man, I saw that pizza commercial the other day. That was at Domino's. Yeah, I like that Domino's has a red thing in their logo. That car that Abby wanted to get was red.
But thought chaining isn't distressing, whereas I would assume the difference between intrusive thoughts and ruminations is most of the time they're distressing.
Yes,
Yeah.
Right? Is thought chaining distressing sometimes for people?
It's just,
okay.
it's almost happens in a relaxed state, right? It's almost like it just kind of naturally happens.
So I did wait. So right now when you brought up chaining, I started thinking about David Bowie, but then I started thinking about to changes like
that's thought chaining. You're doing it,
I'm doing it right now. But then I stopped and I was like,
you do have it.
But then I was like, he won't know who David Bowie is either because he doesn't know who Jerry Garcia is. He doesn't know who Kurt Cobain is.
I was trying to hide in that. Right?
You don't know who David Bowie is.
You
have no idea who David Bowie is.
You don't know who David Bowie is?
No idea. Look at his face.
Oh my gosh.
Give me a second.
No, don't. No.
Okay, I don't even know which one of those is worse.
I don't know. It's all bad.
Do you know who Courtney Love is?
It sounds familiar.
Do you know who Kim Kardashian is?
Yes.
Now that is just okay. I don't know what to say about that. Now I love the Kardashians. I'm surprised I haven't brought up their names yet. But the fact that you know her name and not Jerry Garcia and Kurt Cobain and David Bowie, we're gonna have a talk after.
I watched the roast of Tom Brady recently, so Kim Kardashian is in my.
Oh my God, this is how nice my husband is. I was like, I really want to watch the roast of Tom Brady, and he's like, I can't. I just can't do those roasts. They're just so mean.
It's dark.
Is it?
He
said he just thinks the roasts are just so gnarly.
It can get pretty brutal.
It's
really?
Funny, but then there's some dark parts.
I couldn't do it. Nobody could ever do a roast of me. That would hurt my soul.
I heard Tom Brady said afterwards he would never do it again because his kids actually I think they had watched some of it and it really impacted them.
They were
negatively.
subject.
Yeah, they were subject.
Well, what did he think was going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, you got it.
It's gnarly.
Yeah.
If somebody asked you, do you want to do a roast? I would just watch a couple of them. And the answer after you watch a couple of them is going to be no.
I'll be good. I'm good on that.
I'm surprised they still do those. I feel like the world's going into this more like positive, like inclusive thing. And it's like you still can let somebody sit there and just like tear them off.
I kind of like that we're like allowing comedy to like allow us to have different conversations. But I'm not condoning that roast, though. That was a tough roast. Getting back to the subject of ADHD.
Fine.
Oh, no, look at that. See, I am a ADHD
You're really good about bringing it back.
In remission.
Yeah.
So, question. Do you see adults with ADHD?
Right? I do. I only see adults with ADHD, which is kind of random because, right, when you said it starts to show up in teenagers, well, no, it would be ADHD if it started to show up in right? We have to have had it since the moment we were born.
Okay.
That's why a lot of my questions when I am assessing somebody, especially if it's an adult, they might have to go back and ask a parent or ask somebody they knew because I want to know during like pregnancy, were there any infections? Like, was there a C-section? Were you in the NICU? When I'm asking an adult that, they're kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Did mom smoke? Did mom drink? Like, whatever those things were.
That can all impact it, yeah.
Well, they thought smoking did, but actually it was just, drinking does. Yes, drinking impacts our frontal lobe. Smoking was just, the mothers who were smoking during pregnancy were actually moms who had ADHD, but smoking is not directly correlated to like ending up getting it or changing anything with the genetic. Yeah.
What kind of mental health stuff is everyone just like, I'm too distracted, that's why I'm coming to a therapist, or what kind of mental health stuff do adult clients with ADHD struggle with?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, they're ADHD first and foremost, like the executive functioning stuff. I mean, you don't notice it now. And you guys probably didn't notice this before either because you've complimented me on stuff, but interrupting, I was really bad at interrupting. It's because I have the thought in my head and I'm afraid that it's not going to
get it out.
I'm not going to remember it. Yeah.
Maybe you do have ADHD. Jessica.
That was something I had to teach myself. That was a tough one for me. Response inhibition, right? So that's the first executive
function. Were you aware of that, or
formed.
did people?
No, I mean, not until I was aware.
Yeah.
People made you aware though, or were you like,
stop interrupting
me? No. Does anybody ever? I don't think anybody ever. I'm trying to think. It's so funny that you said that because I just had like a UR, something that I had to do with a doctor, and I kept interrupting her because I was nervous. And she was like, "Can I finish, please?" And I was like, "Oh." I don't think that's the best way to approach somebody. Anytime you're in a conversation with them, I think if you slow down your talking and your tone, eventually they'll stop interrupting. Oh, I love that. Yeah. But I don't think you should just like call them out because then that's like.
Yeah. Unless you're a doctor.
Unless
you're in UR. If you're in UR, you're a horrible person.
Everybody who works in UR.
Yeah. So, but what
were we talking about?
In the form, but you get a client, right? You get clients in ADHD in the form of like, why are you coming to therapy now? Like, what was it that made you say, I have to go do this? I have to do it now. What are some of the people, ADHD people? What are some of the things that they come in for? Like, what is the big problem in their life? Is it?
And a lot of times they're coming to me because I put that right on my website. I help with that, right? Especially women. So I see a lot of women relationships. So, I mean, ADHD in the context of a relationship, they're struggling in their relationship with communication, with stuff like that. So the complexity of if a couple's coming to me, but if one member of that couple has ADHD, that's a totally different way that I treat and work with that couple than if they didn't have a person who had it, because it's a challenge. So I feel like relationship stuff, a lot of them have seen something on Instagram or TikTok and they're like, I think I might have ADHD. I do hear a lot of people say that. And I'll just ask, why do you think that? What have you heard about it? All that. So the information that's out there, it's not always bad that it's out there, right? But, right, somebody who's like, well, I can't concentrate and I'm distracted. Everybody is like that now, right? We're not distracted because our executive functioning's like we have deficits in it, right? We're distracted because we're distracted. There's too much noise around us, and it's. Again, that's loneliness. That's not. So I feel like a lot of people come to me and just ask, do I have it, right? And I feel like probably 50% of the time it ends up somebody has it, and so the other 50% they don't.
You're I'm going to say you think anymore.
I know.
So in your experience, like a lot of people come in, not a lot, but half maybe come in thinking they have ADHD.
To see me, yes.
But it's probably loneliness. And so there's you're making a distinction there between lonely, which is a good distinction to make.
Okay, and I feel like, I mean, let's just be real, because we can do that on this.
Because that's what this
90% of people, 85% of people, I feel like are lonely right now.
Yes.
I mean, that's a lot. That's a large number, but
it's, I would agree with you though.
I think we're starting to like be like, oh, okay, right. That's why like COVID slowed us down. Like it just did, right? And that either made us look within and be like, oh, I don't want this, or I do want this.
Relationship wise.
Yeah. And even like work-life balance.
Yeah.
And I just think saying those things that are throwing those things out, like if I have an employee that says I want more work-life balance, I'm like, what does that mean? Because sometimes they're like, well, I just don't want to be financially stressed. Okay, that's not work-life balance. Like we have to make sure what we're talking about is actually what we're talking about.
I just want something that gives you financial freedom.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, me too.
Doesn't everybody? Yeah. Well, and that's what her name's. I think it's called Allergies. Her name's Allie Ward. She does an amazing podcast just about random stuff. Yeah. But she was talking about how, right, we have families that both of us have to be working in order to even be able to purchase a home and maintain, like, having a family if we want to. And so all that stuff doesn't help. Yeah. Like, we're not connected, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you hit on relationships. Yep. People come in because their relationship is suffering with ADHD. Makes sense, right? Yeah. Like, it's probably hard for you, and I know this from personal experience, for you to listen to your partner, to make them feel like you care about what they're saying, because you're always distracted, you're always interrupted. And so that's a big challenge. Do you see depression and anxiety a lot too?
Yes. I would say those are, the top co-occurring with ADHD, depression and anxiety. Yeah. And the problem is if you don't see the ADHD, so say you have somebody with depression and then they start seeing a psychiatrist and get on an SSRI, that can actually make some of the executive functioning stuff worse. And so again, that's why I'm big on like making sure what are we seeing and what co-occurring do we have and what do we want to make sure of. And we all know there's a lot of trauma, right? That's why we're doing trauma-informed treatment, right? Yeah. But it's how do we do treatment that's trauma-informed and neurodiversity-informed and culturally informed? And, it really is, I think just continuing, and Jesse talking about the knowledge of this podcast, right? Just continuing to always be willing to know stuff. Because how many people do you know that read the new research articles on stuff that come out, right? We don't. You know what we're doing? We're scrolling Instagram and seeing whatever the next person on Instagram is, right? We're not, which I think why that's brilliant to go back and read the research articles, because that's where all the information, the real information, comes from, not where it's like we've played telephone and it's gone down like 5 different, So.
I get a lot of clients when they do experience ADHD. I get the same sort of description of like, I feel stuck or I feel lost.
Sure.
And that I was thinking about the other day, because it's almost like,
is stuck like bored? What's stuck
like,
mean? Yeah.
Almost like they're maybe not fulfilled. Like they're feeling like they're behind in life, or like, and I think a lot of it has to do with, because with ADHD, oftentimes you're kind of chasing that next like high or that next sort of like.
Yes, that's why 300% of the time they're entrepreneurs. Yeah, that's why I am. I mean, yes. Yeah. And how can you do that effectively and not? Yeah. Impulsively.
Funny. What? It was fun. No, keep going.
Yeah, and so
tell us what's in your head.
Why are you judging us?
What are your intrusive thoughts?
No. I'm just
You got 2 people with ADHD right here. We're like, you're judging us. Well, this like self-talk going on inside.
I'm not smart.
Keep going.
I'm not smart.
So there's this idea though, right, of like really helping a client understand who they are and understand the way they work and the way they function. And like you said, that this is a superpower, and we don't have to get lost in the next new thing. But understanding that like my mind likes new things, right? Like my mind likes the chase. Yep. And that's okay. It doesn't mean I'm lost. Doesn't mean I don't know who I am. Right. Because one day I'm learning how to surf and the next day I'm trying to play pickleball.
And how can we do that inside of like, you doing the podcast, right? Yeah. Or me, owning the group practice? Because I've had some of the same clients I've kept for 5 to 7 years. Yeah. I've been doing this since 2014. So 10 years I've had my practice. That is consistent, right? So as therapists, we're asked to be consistent, and that is so important. Yeah. And so I think if you are a therapist specifically who struggles with neurodiversity or ADHD, right? It's important that you do have something that fulfills that need to learn something new or do, right? So you're not always, just kind of feel like you're floating.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Just kidding.
I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know. This is it's a good discussion. I feel like
he's getting bored. He's
like, wrapping it up?
Yeah. What's happening right now?
I feel anxious about time.
Don't worry about it, dude. I have a bunch of things I still want to ask her. She said she's good.
I'll talk for hours. I told you guys that. Yeah. So I almost said the F word, but I'm trying really hard.
You can curse.
So I know I can, but in my head now, because I'm a mom, I'm like, okay, could Jack listen to this? Not that he'd want to. He'd listen to it for 2 seconds, then he'd be bored.
Yeah, he would not be into this.
No. He's Mom, is Blippy going to be on here? Because
I always click not for kids on the YouTube. And
yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Kids love me, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. They do. He's like, how come?
No,
we'll do a kids one next.
I wanted to ask, do you have more? Because I got more. Go. No, I guess a couple things. We had a conversation before she came in here about my daughter, and I was like, I was changing her diaper. Recently, she's been grabbing. She's only 2. She grabs her phone.
Hey, that's my story, dude.
She grabs her phone. She has a phone.
Sorry, grabs my phone.
She has her own phone.
Or Shannon's phone, right? And she'll
scroll.
She used to want to watch right? Now she grabs it, and she finds it fascinating that she can move up the screen and pick something, and it'll be like 5 seconds, and she'll pick something else. And I went to you, right? And I was like, does she have ADHD? And he's like, you should bring that up to Laurie. And I was like, she can't have ADHD already, but... Or actually, I mentioned to my wife,
No, you
too.
said, are we giving her ADHD?
Yeah, and my wife was like,
well, the first question is, if we think our daughter does, then is it me or Shannon who might?
No, I said to Shannon was this. I said, hey, we're giving her ADHD, and she's like,
we're giving her ADHD.
She's like, we can't give her ADHD. So like, then I was like, in my mind, I'm
10% of the time you can.
Okay,
but you're not.
No, I'm not.
No.
Okay.
No.
Wait, what do you have to do to give someone ADHD?
You just gave it to me. You just have to look at them. I'm just kidding.
You talked about the cooties earlier, right?
Yeah. Wait, no, I do have to pull. Sorry. I had to pull this up, but it's 2/3 of the time it's genetics.
Okay.
25 to 35% of the time it's acquired.
Adjust your mic a little bit to hit your lips.
Me?
Adjust your mic a little bit. Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Don't get shocked.
There you go.
Don't get shocked. 25 to 35% of the time it's acquired, like during the pregnancy.
Okay.
Or if there's some kind of infection during pregnancy, and then 10% of the time head trauma or toxins like lead and pesticides.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the 10%. So
Oh, got it. Okay.
Wow.
you didn't shake your baby, so you're fine.
Why don't you think like a postpartum ADHD is talked about like more often? And how did you find out about it?
Me?
Yeah.
I found out about it because I had it. That's why it's not talked about. I had, and this is now why I believe it's so imperative. So, lost my first client to suicide, I want to say 1.5, 2 years ago now. We lost our first teen at the group practice. And then I actually lost a friend. Wow. So, all 3 were boys. Between the ages of 16 and 37. And I think that the thing that we don't talk about is the ideation and the depression that can come alongside ADHD.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, my postpartum was gnarly. And so it was a pretty intense depression, but also I was so scattered, and then that didn't help, right? So I felt scattered. I didn't feel present. I felt kind of disconnected at times. I felt bored, right, because I was at home. I didn't get that stimulation, right, that I needed. And I know that's right. I was just knowing, because I've read parenting books and stuff, knowing that connection with my son is the most important thing right then. But honestly, that was part of the reason that this could be a whole nother podcast, that I did not breastfeed. Yes, I did not breastfeed, everybody.
And that's okay.
It just feels like such a hot topic.
There's a lot of shame around that.
There's a lot of shame around that, yeah. And there's mom guilt and shame is just a huge thing anyway. So I actually exclusively pumped, and I did not know you could do this. This is kind of weird that I didn't. I exclusively pumped. So he still got my breast milk. But I knew for me, sleep is one of the important things. So my husband and I switched off, right? Because if I was exclusively breastfeeding, I'd be the one getting up every night. Yeah. And I just know that wouldn't have been good for me, for our marriage, for my son, right? Yeah. And so I think, and if you previously have diagnoses, right? Like I have ADHD, depression, and anxiety, right? Then the likelihood of postpartum is just higher, you know? Yeah. And so I think whatever the diagnosis is, that's kind of how it's going to present itself. Yeah. But my postpartum depression was worse probably month 4, and then again probably like 9, and didn't clear until maybe 6 months ago. And my son is almost 4, so he's 3 now. Wow. Yeah. And part of the way it cleared, because I take medication, was actually going on an anti-inflammatory diet. Wow. I told my husband, like, this is the best that I felt in a long time. And thank goodness I can drink coffee still, because that would have been a problem. But I started juicing. I actually have a juicer at home and started doing that, and just getting a lot
Taking
more like
steroids.
Hitting steroids, of course.
On the juice. You're on the juice right now. Yeah.
So I drink like celery juice in the morning. I just, any
cool.
vegetables that you can put in the juicer, go with the juicer. And it's getting my son into it, you know.
Yeah,
he's not going to drink celery juice, but
it's really healthy for you, too. Yeah.
It's so healthy for you. Yes. Yeah. Don't get me down that rabbit hole. I got really, you know how like people with ADHD get really into something? Yeah. Like before my anti-inflammatory diet, Oreos. Like, I just like, I like to binge. Like,
hell yeah. Oh shit, I do have ADHD. You just said Oreos and binge. I'm fucking in, dude.
Oh, Oreos are so good.
Yeah.
But they're not anti-inflammatory. I'm not even sure
I
what's
guessed that.
in them.
Yeah.
Did you?
What was the question?
No. Did you like how? At what point did you realize that you were experiencing postpartum depression? Did it take a little bit?
6 weeks into being pregnant.
Wow.
So I just knew. I think just because I'm a clinician, and I'm really big on education about postpartum.
Yeah.
There was actually a gentleman whose wife, unfortunately on the East Coast committed suicide during postpartum, and he opened up a center where moms can bring their children to, because the thought of also going into some kind of treatment, because I have a therapist, I've had her for 9 years. And there were 2 points in that postpartum where I thought maybe I should go in somewhere for like 7 days and just make sure my meds are okay and make sure I'm feeling okay, because it would come on so quickly. Like, it was very intrusive SI. And I'm assuming postpartum, not sure where it came from, but there's this new thing with like COVID SI that I still need to research.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I think, again, just having been somebody, and now to say that it wasn't like my first time ever experiencing SI was postpartum.
Yeah.
I had a SI probably starting around the age of 12 or 13.
Yeah. And for non-clinician viewers here, SI, suicidal ideation.
Yes. Yeah. And whether that's like thoughts of not wanting to be around or whatever, like, I don't know if I told you guys my story of why I actually got into what I do, but like, right, if I had ADHD when I was born, right? And then I also have attachment stuff, if you guys are into attachment theory.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that just the complexity maybe of like attachment stuff, complex trauma and ADHD, right?
Yeah.
Of course, like depression and anxiety are going to come with that.
For sure.
And I think, all of that's great, right? When I was in the therapy room, and again, I've been doing therapy for 9 years, and I'm doing EMDR, like trauma therapy now. But I also see an empowerment coach, right? Because in the room with therapy, yes, I'm put in a hole so we know what treatment to do, right? My empowerment coach, I just like, she is just something else. She is great. She's like, okay, if somebody's sitting there and they're like, she's like, okay, that's depression. I can't help you with that. I want you to get help with that, but I can't help with that. But what I can help you with, right, is being your true authentic self. And what you came in and told me you wanted, right, was wisdom and freedom and protection. And so I need you to sit up, because we're going to do that right now. She's great. She's amazing. And I think with like your treatment, right, you realize like, okay, what do I need in this moment? Right. And I think I'm 40 now, and all the things that I cared about when I was younger, I don't care about anymore. Like, I see them still, like when I drop my son off at daycare and all the moms are driving Tellurides and, maybe are, I don't know, definitely look more put together than me most days. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that I got to spend like quality time with my son before I dropped him off. And that's it. Like the things that I think used to matter don't matter, so it's kind of crazy. Like how life, you're 46.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was so important at one point.
Isn't.
When I'm talking to the microphone, I'm just into the conversation.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is like what is so important at one time, it starts to dissipate. And there's probably still things that I've like really do place focus on. And I'm like, why do I care in some extent? Because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, that's wisdom and that's growth and like.
Thanks. Wisdom is the first word that I'm trying to get at with my authentic self.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
The way you described your coach, I was like, holy shit, this sounds like
she's great. I'll give you her number after
perfect.
this.
Yeah.
It's called Free to Home Wellness. And I'm like, what's the home? She's like, that's the sound. I love her. That's the sound that the earth makes when it's quiet. And I'm like, yes. I saw her at Target the other day and I was like, hey, Christine. So random seeing you here. And she's like, nothing is random. As she like dances away. And I'm just like,
even outside of the room, she's
awesome.
Awesome. Yeah.
You're on point. Yeah.
How do you like, if someone's watching this,
yeah,
maybe they're experiencing postpartum.
Yeah. Yes.
Or even someone who doesn't know if their partner is experiencing it. How do you how to have that conversation? Like I don't know.
How to have any conversation. and I don't know how it is for men. I can only speak for women. Trying to tell your wife something is happening with her is not going to work.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I was like, one day I was telling my husband what to do. I don't know why. Sometimes it just happens. And he was like, I'm an adult. I can do whatever I want. And I'm like, and then I was like, that's true. Right. So I think definitely trying to say it with authority, but being kind, and maybe not a label like, hey, babe, I'm worried about you. I just, how are you feeling? Right. Asking.
Yeah.
But also saying you're worried. Right.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Nothing's wrong with me. Babe. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know, that whatever's happening. I think that's, you know, and if you don't know, right? If you don't know if you're experiencing postpartum, I think anybody who's gone through that, right? Your whole body changes for all those months. Yeah. Everybody is sucking the life out of you for all those years after. I think talking to a therapist regardless is so, so important, because as a parent in general, because our life is not about us anymore. And you need those moments to reflect.
Your role is changing as a person. Changing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had me and my wife, when we had our first daughter. My wife experienced postpartum depression. Yeah. And I didn't know about it, and she didn't even realize that she was experiencing it. You know. And I remember at one point, probably years later, she told me, she's like, I think I was depressed, like, during that time. Yeah. For about maybe like a year. And I was like, I felt so bad. I was like, fuck, dude, like, I'm a therapist. Like,
you felt bad because you think you're supposed to be able to see it.
Yeah,
no.
And I was like, how, you know, like, there's a part of
me
like, I wish you would have told me, you know, but then I was like, like, how was I not there for you? And it was really productive, though. I'm really happy she told me. And she had a Facebook group that helped her cope with it and helped her through it.
Well, and she probably gets that. So usually when you're a mom who's right, you're posting the doctor a couple times, you get the PHQ-9. I'm just gonna quickly say that's bullshit. The reason that I know that is because I intentionally filled it out really high just to see what my doctor would do. I don't even think they looked at it. Like,
the PHQ-9 is an assessment to test if you are depressed or not, but it asks you questions. It's a rating scale.
Yep, it's a rating scale. There's, I think, like 10 questions to see if there's any levels of depression there, right? Yeah. But again, one assessment doesn't actually fully do it, right? So unless you have that connection with the person, which is why I think it's important to see a therapist after, like, post-baby, whether parents are going together or whether they're going individually, because nobody's really going to be asking those questions, and you're just supposed to go on with life, and everybody's excited about the baby. And, like, it's so hard to see, like, I think what's happening, unless it's clearly, which I've seen postpartum psychosis a lot more and didn't realize how often it happens. Unless it's clear like that, it actually is really hard to see. Yeah. So the fact that it gets missed a lot makes sense. And you, I think as women, and again, I was more preemptive about it and kind of just have the knowledge, and actually saw both of my sisters go through it. But I feel like it is something that's still stigmatized. I mean, I think a lot of mental health still is. And so I think just, you know, after you've had the baby 4 to 6 weeks after, because sometimes it doesn't start for 3 to 6 months, start seeing a therapist. Yeah. You know, you can see them over video now. You don't even have to leave. And little babies are typically, I don't know how your kids were, but I remember my son sleeping a lot more than he does now at 3.
For reals?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
Man, I don't know.
Okay.
He didn't go to bed until 10 less. Why are you still awake? He's like, I don't want to go to sleep. I'm like,
why do you get to stay up?
It's called childhood insomnia. It's like they procrastinate. You want to learn something about procrastination. Oh man. Whew. That kid.
I was gonna say, I talked to you this about before we recorded too, before you came in. I don't read the research papers that we talked about. I'll just watch reality television. I always joke.
Same thing.
Like, I was like, I was like,
just
I don't have
kidding.
time to read a fucking book. Like, I'm just not going to. But like,
do you have time to listen to it over audio?
I do, but I have ADHD now. I've realized that, so I can't even pay attention to that.
He's in denial.
But no, I was watching a reality show, and there was a guy on there, and he talked about how he found out he had postpartum depression.
I could totally see that.
Okay, I was going to ask you, and I brought this up. He's all, you got to look up the definition of that. But I told...
postpartum, post-baby. What does partum mean?
So I thought postpartum meant like after giving birth.
The physical effects of it. But I don't know if that's the case. But he talked about it. And the reason I brought it up, because after I had my daughter, I went through a real shift of like identity.
Sure.
And I was very depressed. I remember on my birthday after my daughter was born, she was born in December. My birthday was in July. I just had this real like identity shift. I'm like, who am I now?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who I am anymore. Like, I'm this father. I never thought I would be a father. I'm a husband. Like, I kind of lost myself, and I was in a rut. So, and then I was watching the reality show.
It's good to hear you say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's real. Because I think sometimes as women, we're like, F you, my body changed. And it's like that doesn't give you space to have your feelings about it.
And you were right, Jesse. Postpartum means
oh yes, you're right.
Following childbirth.
Following childbirth. Yes. So
or
fatherhood?
The birth of a child. So
following childbirth.
So
it doesn't mean that you had to have.
Yeah,
well, childbirth. Following childbirth.
Yeah. Or the birth of a child. So I feel like
I'm not
after childbirth.
Yeah, I'm not connected like the woman would be connected, but I am connected in different ways. So
I think that's important. Yeah.
And I just had never heard that diagnosis, and once again, it's reality TV, and I was like, this shit's legit.
What
right?
What reality show?
I was watching the Challenge MTV, like the Real World.
MTV.
Yeah, well, it's on Paramount.
I do know the Real World,
but it's like the challenge. It's like the old school like Real World and Road Rules, and they get together.
Do you know what Real World and Road Rules is?
I do remember Real World.
Do you remember the first one? What city was it in?
New York. Come on, dude.
Seattle.
Wow.
The first year? No, it wasn't.
Of Real World?
Yes,
Wasn't Puck the first year?
That's San Francisco, year 3. Wow. we can go on this right now. So I actually met Puck in Las Vegas.
No. How was he in person?
He was getting kicked out of a hotel.
Oh, the same way that he was in
he was
on reality television.
Yeah,
that makes
so
sense.
he was just like
a mess.
Yeah, he was a mess, which I thought I think I was 20 years old in Vegas.
That checks out.
And I was just like, this guy's so cool.
What was your identity then, 20 years old in Vegas? I want to hear about that.
That's
why you had postpartum depression. You're like, what's my identity as I'm holding a bottle? And
bring this back. I think I'm glad you said it too, and I kind of reacted to it.
You gave me a lot of hot shit over there.
Yeah, but you know why? I was reacting to. I was reacting.
He was reacting to his own postpartum.
To being afraid of being criticized on the internet. Because I feel like there's this like
you
sort
guys,
of
this is good.
There's this toxic there's this toxic thing going on right now where like guys are totally being like put down.
Toxic masculinity. Is that what it's called?
No, toxic femininity. No, just kidding. No, where people are like, hey, like.
Did you guys watch Barbie?
No,
I haven't seen it.
Oh my God! Okay.
I just haven't seen it because I don't watch a lot of movies.
Here's what we're doing.
That's okay.
Here's what we're doing. We're just gonna go to the theater and watch it, or not a theater because that just sounds like a lot of work. We'll just watch it somewhere here.
We do like a podcast analysis.
What feminism is equality.
Yes.
Right. It's about both of us working together.
Yes.
Dude, you gotta watch Barbie 100. If you're like, yes, Greta, the girls. They did.
I had a presentation on feministic therapy modalities. So yeah, it's about equality, egalitarianism.
It's about equality.
Yeah. But people online are like, no, like men, put them down. Like you don't know. You try to be in here and mansplain, and so that's why I was. So you know what? You know what?
Mansplain. I haven't heard that. I don't.
Mansplaining is what you told Jesse, or what you told people not to do, to not go and explain to your partner what they're going through.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, that's because of that. Have you seen the video? It's not about the nail.
Yes, I love that video.
That's what that is.
We'll put that video on the YouTube here. Resources.
It's not about the nail is a video that I like to show couples when they come to see me.
That's the one Bev always played on.
I've heard of it.
Family.
Yeah. Because the male in this particular video, the male is trying to explain why she's trying to explain why she's feeling, and he's trying to fix it.
Yeah. Okay. So she has it's funny because there's a guy and a girl on the couch.
Yeah.
She's talking about like how much the nail is uncomfortable. Yep. She's got a nail on her head.
Oh, okay.
She's like, it's just so
Jesse's
uncomfortable.
Like, wait, I don't have ADHD because I had a whole thought that I was gonna finish, and now you guys are talking about a nail. So I definitely don't have ADHD.
And she's like, it's so uncomfortable. It puts holes in my clothes, and he goes, why don't you just take it off? And she's like, it's not about the nail, okay? It's about
this. This is what therapists with ADHD have to watch out for, right? Because they're talking to their client. Their client's like, I think I had I know I'm a dad, but I think I had like male postpartum. And then you talk about puck, and I'm like, yeah, puck. That's what therapists with ADHD have to watch out for. Not getting stuck. They pull. They get stuck on one thing like we did. Because you were going to say something about looking at your baby and talking about your identity.
I think I just I think that was it. I think
he's given up on the conversation.
No, I didn't. Why would I give up on it? I'm not going to. No, but I think when we brought it up, I think, just more, your response to it was like, I'm worried about getting heat from like maybe women thinking like I'm minimizing their experience, but that would be their own interpretation.
Yes.
Correct.
Or maybe even with men going, oh gosh, here's this guy saying he's got postpartum.
Well, our own interpretation, I always tell people, you are going to learn the most from the people you like the least or you're annoyed at. Because they're going to be a reflection of whatever shit you still have not worked on.
Yeah.
I love that.
So that's correct. That is their interpretation. If you have that interpretation, that's actually a great time. Instead of getting angry and whatever, writing direct messages to people or notating how upset you are with them, self-reflecting is actually a great idea.
That's the biggest middle finger you can give them. It's like grow from this.
Grow from this. Don't bring it back to me. Grow from it. Like,
I think this is good.
It's good. We're gonna
go watch Barbie, right?
We're gonna go watch Barbie. Yes, we're gonna go watch Barbie. So
did
if
you
have
see
questions,
Oppenheimer? My husband's gonna make me ask that.
No.
I watched that. So I just had
it.
recently had COVID, and I was like, I'm gonna watch Oppenheimer.
You're like, I still have it, and I'm like,
no, I haven't. I was like, I've got nothing else to do. I can't be around my daughter. I'm like, I'm gonna watch this 3-hour movie.
I didn't even know people still got COVID.
Yeah, I got it.
I don't believe in COVID.
Stop it.
He's not kidding. But like,
as long as you don't believe, as long as you're not like, I don't believe in ADHD. You could not believe in whatever you want.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah.
On the ADHD thing.
Yeah.
I believe. I'm a believer. I have it. No.
You down with ADD?
Yeah, you know me.
Come on, right?
Everybody.
So if you have questions about ADD or ADHD, let us know. If you're thinking you have it. If you just developed it, I'm just kidding. If you think you're giving it to your children,
talk to Jesse.
Talk to Jesse.
I'll help you.
Or even postpartum depression, postpartum ADD, ADHD. That's something new that I learned about today.
Hopefully, let us know if I made it up or not.
Yeah. Do you?
Copyright.
This is a portion of the podcast where we let you plug something. So, is there anything that you got going on?
Plug something. I just don't even know where to start.
That's my fault. I always say plug stuff. He thought that was very weird to say plug.
I'm gonna plug my book that I'm writing that I didn't tell you guys about.
What? We made a joke about that, right?
Oh, yeah.
You made a joke.
No, she can't write. No. You before there was a prank he was gonna play.
I was gonna start the podcast. I was gonna be like, welcome to the Mr. Podcast. We have Laurie here, the author of the best-selling book ADD. Yes, you heard me. And
and we were gonna
actually a great title. Thank you.
And then I was just gonna go into the show.
Yeah.
That is but funny. I would have been like, yes, I wrote that book.
You would have gone along with it.
It's not a book on ADHD.
But what are you writing?
Yeah, so it does. Right now, the working title is Everything Will Be Okay. I can share a few chapters with you guys because I've given it to 4 people. So it's pretty much, it's 2/3 of the way done.
Okay.
I've been writing it for 2 years now.
Wow.
Okay.
It is a combination of understanding specifically like disorganized attachment and trauma, and also humor. I put humor in there, and my own experience. So some of it is about my journey through processing my trauma and attachment stuff, and sharing that knowledge with other people as well through my personal story.
Nice.
So
yeah, that's awesome.
Exciting, dude.
Yeah,
That's so
I'm
cool.
excited. I'm nervous because I've given a print copy to 4 people because I need other people to read it, whether they're therapists or not. So a couple therapists have it. My husband had it for a while. Nobody has read it yet. And I'm like,
of course not.
If
I'm
anybody
like,
wants to read it, are you
"Aw."
going to send it to, or are you going to make them wait?
well, now I'm just worried. Like,
Yeah.
if nobody's going to read it.
Yeah, we'll let
I'm
you
like,
know,
what?
guys.
Because people like snippets, right? Podcasts. Like, people like snippets.
What
but-
we'll do is we'll evaluate the book on the podcast. Just
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
I'm down. I told you I'm 40. Like, let's do it. As long as it makes you guys read it, sure. I'm in.
So
He's
I'm
like,
excited
Josh is
for
like,
that.
I'm not going to read it.
Send the book. I'm excited for it.
That's
and
very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll plug that.
What else you
I'm
got?
looking for a publisher now, so the hope is it's going to come out in I'm gonna kind of 6 months.
Okay.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Let's do it. Commit to it.
It's gonna happen.
And then I'll come in. Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah.
manifest
Speak it into
There you go.
existence.
We're gonna speak it
Yes,
into
Love it.
exactly.
Yeah.
It was first called 1,000 Paper Cuts, but then a therapist told me that was kind of like
I love that.
morbid or I don't know.
You
a
gotta
Michelle
go all
Branch
in,
song
dude.
or something. Okay.
Yes, that is
I feel
right
like
next to Beautiful Surrender. Yeah.
I felt like there was just a pop song with a piano for sure.
Yep,
but-
Michelle Branch. Yes. Maddie has no idea who that
Right,
is.
exactly.
Walking along.
I love Michelle
Doesn't she play
Branch.
the piano
Yeah,
and she's
yeah,
like
yeah.
on the.
Yeah.
You know who's.
No, I don't. No, but I always pretend. Like, I always go along
Yeah,
with
he
it.
goes
Like,
along with it. Yeah, yeah. He just
and then
nods
you
and
ask me straight
smiles.
up. I'm like, no.
No idea.
He's like Kurt Cobain.
Do
He
you?
killed himself. He's like.
Do you? You have a group practice too?
I
Right?
do. I have a group practice. Rise Counseling, RIZE.
Yeah.
RiseCounseling.com in Fountain Valley.
Very cool. And then do you take clients on?
I do. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we see, and my staff is amazing. We see teens, I think starting at like age 12, all the way up through adults.
Nice.
And we take United, Optum, Cigna, and Aetna. So
Very cool.
yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go. Virtual and in person.
Virtual and in person, yeah, in
Perfect.
Fountain Valley. So it was like, I think it took me like 35 minutes to get here, so not that far.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Cool.
Well, that was a great conversation, and it was the most entertaining conversation I've ever had.
In
I
your
feel like-
life?
Yes.
Yes!
You were.
Really?
Sorry, Jesse.
I'm like, what? I'm like,
You
what?
were. The
We're not
only
conver- we
reason
do
is
so many podcasts, Tim and I.
only.
He also
only
has ADHD, so he's probably
no. You know why though? Because it had nothing to do with you, bro. It was all me. I felt so comfortable knowing that I wasn't going off tangent, and if I was, that it was just a normal thing to do.
Yes.
And it just felt like I
It
was
felt right.
free.
You felt at
You
home.
know,
Felt
like I
free
was.
and
Yeah,
right,
I was
yeah.
free. I could let my hair down, and it was just I
Anytime
let
you want me
loose.
here, Maddie, I'll
So,
be here.
Thank you. Yeah. So if you get any value from the show, if you learned something, if you thought we made you laugh,
Yay.
please share the show. And thank you for your support.
And always
Jesse.
checking on your friends, right?
There it is.
Always checking on your friends.
Got my name, tag it home today, I'm Jack. Greet you like I give a fuck. Are you surprised by that?